am white. Give it up, everybody. I'm also a Scorpio, just saying. I'm going to outnumber you all the way. Some of you probably heard me whimpering and wincing in the bathroom earlier. I just want to dispel the rumors that Jeff keeps starting. I do not have gonorrhea. Actually, I am recovering from bladder cancer treatments, which is actually the truth of that stuff, But it's good, I as my last checkup, I am cancer free. So, I wish it was gonorrhea. At least then I would have done something fun to get it. That's kind of the big problem there. My cancer is probably caused from drugs, drinking, and of course the big one, smoking. My problem is I drove my body like I stole it, right? I just wish I would have stole a better one. Instead I got stuck with this defective European model. You get the idea. It's kind of like, Michael Douglas, he got throat cancer. You guys know who Michael Douglas is? Throat cancer? Well, he's a movie star. He's very old, but he's white. So he's on our team. He got throat cancer from HPV. You know how he got HPV? From going down on Catherine Zeta-Jones for 25 years. That's exactly how he got throat cancer. I got my cancer from the old-fashioned way, smoking cigarettes. He got his from going down on a Hollywood legend. Life is not fair, gentlemen, even when it comes to cancer, right? As a 54-year-old unk, I do feel it's that's by the way, I just found out what unk meant 2 weeks ago. As a 54-year-old unk, I do feel it is my duty to redefine bladder cancer for the next generation of young white men. I'm no longer going to be calling it urinary urgency. From now on, I'm going to be calling it Pissmaxing. Right? Maybe bladder logging. I'm just not sure. I do have to be what I call preemptive. I really have to plan my, day around toilet availability. It is disruptive. It is painful. Sometimes I think it would have been better off getting testicular cancer. I haven't used my balls since I got married. In my early 20s, I wished I could have run around and shown my penis to just about everybody I met. One more high five. 30 years later, the universe granted me that wish, just not how I would have liked it. There was a 3-month treatment period where no matter who I ran into, they either had to see or manhandle my situation. I wish I would have got an OnlyFans. Currently, I have all of the shame and none of the income. When I was first getting tested, the intake nurse did the intake, the vitals nurse took my vitals. So when the doctor came in and said, "We're just waiting for the head nurse," I was like, there is no way that is covered under my insurance. I got a PPO, and that is definitely a no. Then the worst part is the cystoscopy. All right, you guys ready for this one? The cystoscopy, do you guys know that there is an entirely different way to enter your digestive system that is not your mouth hole or your asshole? Right? So it's basically they enter your wiener hole with a camera through your meatus. Right? The medical term for it is the urethral meatus, which technically makes your wiener hole the penis meatus. I love that fun fact when I found it out. And as long as we're learning it together, if I say penis, you guys say meatus. Ready? Ready? Ready. Penis. Penis. And that is not part of the bit. I just love hearing you guys say it. Talking about unwanted dick pics. I sent them to my. What's that?
Who was talking about that?
I just was. That's what a cystoscopy is. A dick pic. All right, so talking about unwanted dick pics. I sent them to my wife, and she is like, "Oh my gosh, I've never seen them from this perspective before." I'm so proud of myself. I invented a whole new genre of dick pic. I'll be posting them on my Instagram. Not really, I don't post them on my Instagram. These days, my CBS app gets more notifications than my Instagram. You old people will understand. Thank you, old people. Old white lady as well. The fact is, when the urologist, puts the camera down your, when the urologist puts your camera down your penis, sorry, I just love this saying. When the urologist puts the camera down your penis, it is so uncomfortable. What makes it so uncomfortable, though, isn't necessarily the camera going down my penis. What makes it so uncomfortable is the eye contact that the doctor He's like, "Don't get excited, Keith." And I'm like, "Dude, my name is Carl." And he's like, "I know, Keith is mine." I love Bryce. I should have got an OnlyFans, right? So people pay good money for that kind of a kink, my last treatment, I had terrible insomnia. They prescribed me Ambien, it worked, but the side effects are pretty real. I would get up, I would shower, I would shave, I would go to the bathroom. I just wish I wasn't still, asleep in my closet at 2 a.m. when they did it, some people come up to me and they're like, "Oh, Carl, did you have to change your diet? Did you have to change your regimen?" And I'm like, "Dude, I'm just trying to not have to change my fucking underwear, I just, and then people come to me like, "Oh, Carl, I'm so sorry this is happening to you." And I'm like, I'm not, if it wasn't for cancer, I'd be standing up here with nothing but small dick jokes. You may want to share your homeopathic remedies with me, right? Maybe you want to, rub some magic crystals on my wiener after the show. I'm all for it. Except for you three, we're not going to just know that if you do, I'm going to be Pissmaxing and climaxing all over your magic crystals. Thank you. That's my.
First 2 sets. Ovaries and then our meatus. All right.